Hi, I'm Tim, and it's time to help you choose what's on your table this weekend. Now, Valentine's Day is right around the corner, and board games are such a great way for couples to bond with one another and spend good quality time with each other. I know for my wife and I that board games have been a really big part of our relationship, hence the collection here behind me. So for Valentine's Day, I wanted to show you 3 games that my wife and I have really bonded over, playing with just her and I. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that it's just a 2-player game or even that the game plays best at 2 players, but these are just 3 games that her and I have really enjoyed playing when it's just us. And later on, when we go through each game as well, my wife Naomi, or as I usually call her, Mrs. Meeple, is going to join us and share with you all the reasons why we've loved playing those games as well. So without any further ado, let's get into the first one here. We have Seven Wonders Duel. Now, this box, you can tell that we've played it a lot. It's well traveled, it's broken, it's been taped together. So we've really gotten a lot of playtime out of this game. Seven Wonders Duel is a 2-player game only. It is light to medium complexity. The time on the box is 30 minutes. Now, on average, we're finishing this game in 21 minutes. If it's your first time playing, I'd really recommend adding 10 minutes to your time budget for learning the game. In Seven Wonders Duel, each player controls a civilization at either end of the table, and in their civilization, they're trying to build up a city. Now, on their turn, they can either take a card from the middle to add a building to their city, or they can take a card from the middle to build one of the 4 wonders that they're constructing in their city, depending on if they have the resources to do so or not. When they're building it for a building, they just take it, they pay any potential associated costs, and they add it to their tableau, grouped with cards of the same type or color. If they're taking it to build a wonder, they would take it and tuck it underneath. Now, when you add cards to your city, it's going to give you different options or abilities. Sometimes it gives you more resources. Sometimes it makes things a little bit cheaper for you or makes it easier to do commerce. Sometimes they give you victory points, contribute to science, or they can contribute to your military might. Anytime you gain military power, you're going to move this little marker closer towards your opponent. Now, the game takes place over 3 ages, and what that means is that an age consists of a round of these cards in the middle. And once they're all gone, the age is over. And we're going to do that 3 times for the end of the game. Whoever has the most points at the end of age 3 wins the game. There's also 2 ways that you can end the game and win immediately. And that's through either a science victory by collecting 6 different types of science symbols, or through military victory. And that happens when you're able to push this little counter all the way to your opponent's side. The mechanics in Seven Wonders Duel are obviously card drafting, because there's card drafting in the middle. There's set collection, tug of war, and sudden death ending as well. Well, as promised, I have my wife Naomi, or as I often call her, Mrs. Meeple, here to tell us all about what we love about all these games in here, because we've played them together so much. So what's the first thing we like about Seven Wonders Duel?
So Seven Wonders Duel feels like you're playing the actual Seven Wonders game, but this is specifically for 2 players. So they've done a really good job of boiling down the real game into a 2-player version.
I remember when we first got Seven Wonders, we played it so much and then just being so sorely disappointed when it wasn't really a 2-player game. So when this came out, it was really, really awesome. Another thing that we really, really like about it is that military matters more in this game than the base version, just because it's a way that the game can end. Whereas in the base version, you can survive to the end with a weak military. In this one, if you don't play military cards, you're going to probably lose. What's the last thing that we like about it?
Something different in this game is that there's also some sudden death ways to win. So you're not necessarily going to play through all the 3 ages. There's other ways for your opponent to kind of sneak up on you and win, so it kind of keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, all in all, we've gotten a lot of plays out of this game. Our score pad is actually completely full, and we've had to start a second one, so we're getting a lot of play out of it. And I'm glad that Naomi didn't mention that she likes it because she wins all the time. Our next game is Wingspan. Now, Wingspan is a game that we didn't expect we'd enjoy because neither of us are particularly bird lovers, but we've really come to love this game and play it a lot on nights where we just want to pull out a game that we can play relatively quickly because we know how it works. Now, Wingspan is a 1 to 5 player game. It's medium complexity. The box says it takes 40 to 70 minutes. Now, we find it depends on player count. On a lower player count or just 2 players, an average game for us is 45 minutes, even as experienced gamers. If we have a higher player count, we're actually looking at about 90 minutes. And I'd always recommend to add 15 to 20 minutes to your budgeted gameplay time if it's your first time playing or if you have new players at the table as well. Wingspan is an engine building game where each player is trying to attract birds to their sanctuary and get the most points in doing so. Now, on their turn, players are going to be able to take an action based on any of the rows in their sanctuary, and those actions are going to be worth more based on how many birds are already in that row in that sanctuary as well, hence the engine building component. So if I were to take the bottom row action, I get to draw more cards. The more birds that I have in the bottom row, the more cards I get to draw when I do so. And once I draw those cards, if I already have birds in that row, I'm going to be able to take all the different powers that those birds have as well and take advantage of them. So it builds up even more of an engine for you. Those powers can be anything like letting you draw more cards, you get to tuck cards behind birds, get more food, what have you. Here, I get to take more eggs, and that's going to help me attract more birds to my sanctuary because there's a cost in eggs as you get more birds that you have to pay every time you add a bird to your sanctuary. Here I can take more food, and that probably reveals one of the more fun items in this game, and that's this dice tower that is thematically themed as a birdhouse. So you take the food dice and you put them in, and there they come. You get to choose food based on what comes up there. The last rows on top is when you get to play birds from your hand, and in order to do that, you have to spend the right number of eggs and the types of food that that bird eats. Now, the game takes place over 4 rounds, and at the end of each round, or sorry, I should say during each round, you get to take 1 action for every cube in your collection. At the end of each round, you have to take one of these cubes and place it on one of the bonuses, depending on how many points you got. And that cube stays there for the rest of the game. And what that means is at the end of each round, you have 1 fewer action for the following round. And that adds a little bit of stress to the game. And it also makes the engine that you build more important because you're going to get more out of the actions that you do have left. So like I said, the game ends after 4 rounds. The player with the most points wins, and you get points based on how many points those birds are worth there, the bonuses, tucked cards, different bonuses that the birds may have in them as well. Now, the mechanics in Wingspan are card drafting, dice rolling, hand management, set collection, and endgame bonuses. Now, we're going to try our best to talk around this big beefy box here, but we sat down, we brainstormed what are the 3 things that we seem to like the most about playing Wingspan with 2 players. The first
is that it's just as fun to play with 2 players as 4 or 5. You don't always find that with a game, but we've had just as much fun playing it, just the 2 of us.
Yeah, I mean, when you get to 3, 4, or 5 players, the engines start to be more significant, and you get more bonuses off the other players, and you can probably do more, but that hasn't really taken away from the actual fun of playing with 2 or 5. It's just the engines aren't as big. Another one that we really like is that it's actually pretty educational. I mean, I said earlier, like when we saw this game, we thought, well, we're not really big bird lovers, and that hasn't changed. But boy, like I really enjoy looking at the bottom of the cards and getting the little snippets of information as well. What's the last?
So as the game goes on, you get fewer cubes, so fewer turns to take. So you really have to work on building up your base of cards in front of you to be able to do more and more actions as the game goes on because you're going to have fewer turns. So it's a balancing act. Yeah.
So as I said earlier, Wingspan for us has become a game where it's easy to kind of pick up and set up. We know how to play it. We get it done pretty quickly, and we've loved every experience we've had with it.
And it also has a really cool birdhouse.
Yes, we mentioned that earlier, the birdhouse.
Yeah.
our last game is Martin Wallace's London. Now, London is a 2 to 4 player game of medium complexity. It takes about 60 to 90 minutes. We find, again, like mini games, it kind of depends on player count. A 2-player game, we get it done an average of 60 minutes. Once we start getting to the 4-player realm, it's about an 80-minute game. Now, if you have first-time players with this game, I would add 15 minutes. There's definitely some explanation needed with this game. 15 minutes is about the right budget for that. In London, players take on the role of prominent English architects just after the Great Fire of London, all tasked with the job of rebuilding the city. Now, on your turn, you're going to have a hand of cards, and what you're going to do on your turn is you're going to draw cards, and then you are either going to pay whatever costs you need to pay to add the cards to this area here. You can also buy different boroughs of London and add them to your tableau down here. You can take loans if you don't have enough money to pay for some of the cards or the prices there. You can take loans, which you can repay later. Or you can do something that's called running your city. Now, when you run your city, you're actually going to gain all the benefits on the cards that you've put in this area here in the tableau. Sometimes they give you points, sometimes they give you money. But one thing you need to be careful about is that when you do run your city, you're going to probably gain some poverty. And the more largesse that you have and what you've done, the more poverty that you're going to gain. Now, the game ends after the entire draw stack is out, and whoever has the most points wins the game. But you need to be careful because you're going to get penalized based on how much poverty is in your area and how many loans are there as well. So it provides a bit of a balancing act for sure. Now, the mechanics in London are action queue, card drafting, hand management, and loans. So London has had a lot of play between the two of us. I mean, we even take it on vacation with us. So what do you think the first thing is that we really like about playing London?
The poverty tokens are a great equalizer. Someone can't just get a whole bunch of points and run away with it. You're always getting poverty on every turn, no matter what you do. So it keeps it kind of even.
Yeah, another thing that we really like, and it kind of builds off of the poverty token thing, is that the game is really well balanced. And in that, I mean that everything good that you do has a bad thing that can also come with it. And so you really have to balance those things out and make sure you're not drawing back too much on the good things that you're doing. And it creates like a game where you really have to think about all the aspects of what you're doing. What's the last thing that we like?
You really have to plan out how you run your city. You can't do it too often or else you're going to get too much poverty. You don't want to have too many stacks of cards in front of you or else you're going to get too much poverty. You want to make sure you have really good cards. So you're always, every turn you take, you have to think about how it's going to play into running your city when you do run it.
And this is the one that I usually win. Well, that wraps it up for this episode. You know, Mrs. Meeple and I hope that you enjoyed hearing about these board games that we've enjoyed as a couple as much as we enjoyed sharing them with you this week. If you like this episode and you want to see more of them, hit that subscribe button below. And if you want to get notified anytime there's a new episode, hit that little bell too, so that way you get a notification every time a new episode comes up. Or you could always comment below and tell us about all of these games and your experiences, or what's on your table this weekend.